Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
And here we are again. We appreciate you all being here. I keep my hair from standing up on end. I don't know what that's all about. Welcome. I'm watching you on the restream. We appreciate you guys also over on Clubhouse for
it is doing
calls.
Something funny there in the front.
What is going on?
Right in the front.
I've had headphones on all day.
Lick your fingers and then.
Honey, you're going to have to do that. How'd that go?
I have to lick your head.
So today we're going to get into a lot of different topics. Remind you that tomorrow we're going to be talking to Chad Goes Deep. Those guys, Chad and JT, will be here on Thursday. We have Lionel, radio host, who is a media analyst. We're going to talk a little bit about the future of streaming. And today we have Bethany Mandel, homeschooling mother of 5, contributing writer for Deseret and news, and editor of a new children's book series called Heroes of Liberty, which we will be talking about. And Caleb, I'm going to make you chime in here a bit today because you come from homeschooling background.
Yes, I do. I am the oldest of 5, a homeschooled family, K through 12. Also, this is not my normal voice. I'm sick, so.
But we got you. We hear you.
You got me. I'm here.
What was that like? I mean, I don't understand how that would work. Are you all in the same schoolroom? Is mom the teacher? Are you online?
Mom was teacher.
Stuff?
We had no online school. Mom was the teacher. Mom researched and found all the curriculums that she wanted us to do. We did individual different curriculums and books for, math or history, or, she would pick and choose. We had our own like homeschool book fairs that we would go to where we would pick out books and publishers would just throw events. And we were also very politically involved, as a lot of homeschoolers are, and also very much into building our own businesses. So my parents would make entrepreneurship part of our schooling every day, which is what led me to doing everything that I do today. So I'm very appreciative for it. It was very much in like, I guess it's, in earlier days of homeschooling. Nowadays, there's a lot more resources for like social interaction and things like that. We were kind of those on the farm homeschoolers, you imagine. But a lot of homeschoolers are, they have very, very, very various different ways of homeschooling these days.
Well, let's bring Bethany in and discuss some of this. You can follow her at Bethany Shondark, Shondark. Bethany, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
And so you had once schooled me on Shondark versus Mandel, and now I'm getting confused. You have to do it to me again, because your Twitter is Shondark, your Facebook is Shondark Mandel, Bethany Shondark Mandel, Bethany ANY. What should I be using?
Mandel. So my middle name is Shondark, and I love it very much. Okay. And so I thought when I made all of my social media handles Bethany Shondark that I wouldn't have to change it when I got married. But joke's on me, because then everybody thinks it's my last name. So my last name is actually Mandel.
Okay. Susan, that's what you did too, right? Sort of.
Sort of.
So the part of your history, now I haven't seen Bethany in how many years now? Like 4 or 5 years, something like that. It's crazy, right?
Something like that. Yeah, maybe like 3.
And Bethany would come in and help out on some of the topics we'd be dealing with on this local AM radio show I was doing back in the day. And we sort of got very chummy talking about lots of different topics. And so it's time to bring Bethany back. And that's why she's here amongst other topics. But I didn't know about your traumatic history. I don't think I did I? You never told me that.
I don't know. Which all the death.
The death and the poverty and tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So my parents died when I was in my teens. My mom died when I was 16, which was not unexpected. She was sick my entire childhood. And I actually was the one that took her off life support. It was not going well. I was studying in Belgium. I was a junior in high school, and I got a call on Christmas Eve, it was good that I was Jewish, because it would have really been traumatic if I wasn't. But I got a call on Christmas Eve. It was time to come home. And I came home and she was in a call. And so I was the one that sort of made the call off life.
I'm a little confused. What were you doing in Belgium?
I was an exchange student in a wide trailer park in upstate New York, and very poor and very bored. And there's a Rotary exchange program that is incredibly affordable for working class families. And so you just basically have to pay for your flight, and then they give you a stipend. And so that's what I did. So I was in Belgium.
And I need me some Flemish. Did you learn French?
French. I learned French. I was living in the South.
Okay. Good.
So yeah. So she died so that was the middle of my junior year. And then I lived with an emotionally abusive aunt my senior year of high school, as you do. And
as is the custom.
Yeah. After you've had one traumatic life experience, you just shift gears into the next one. So she stole roughly half of my inheritance, which was like $30,000. It really wasn't anything to write home about. And so then my freshman year of college, I lived in a studio apartment in the Bronx. It was on the first level in the South Bronx of an apartment building, overrun by cockroaches. There were more cockroaches than there was furniture. I slept on a blow up arrow bed that always had holes in it. And so I was just patching hole after hole after hole. And every morning I'd wake up on the floor and be like, I wonder where today's hole is. So, so I had no furniture and just an arrow bed. So I slept on that for my entire freshman year of college. And then I decided to go to a real school for the rest, because I was at a CUNY school, which is a community college basically. And they don't have any on-site housing. And so my sophomore year, I transferred to Rutgers University and took out some loans so that I could actually live like a human being and live in a dorm and have somewhat of a real college experience. But 3 days into my sophomore year at my new school, my dad committed suicide. So I was kind of getting into gear and I'm at college now and things are going well. And then I get a call midnight. Sorry, Bethany, your dad committed suicide. And obviously that's super tragic, but it was also outside of the tragedy of that, he was paying for some of college. And then I had the financial rug ripped out from under me as well. Cause he was paying a middling amount, but then I had to get a job on campus in addition to going to school, which was really hard. I ended up working close to 40 hours a week between two jobs in college to get through college because I didn't qualify for much financial aid until my last year.
That is how you train to become a homeschooling mom. Yeah. You wonder how you juggle all that.
Yeah, that's it. That's how I juggle. Yeah, and that's how I juggle. I worked two different jobs, and when I finally graduated and I got a real 40-hour a week job right out of college, I was like, what do I do with all this time? This is a bizarre experience. Yeah.
What did you study?
So I studied history and Jewish studies. To be frank, just because of how much I was working, I would do recon about the classes that I could take that required the least amount of work. And so do I feel like I learned anything in college? No. I just had to sort of get through it and get that degree. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe people learn things in college. I certainly didn't.
I know. I did. I learned a lot. Had my ass handed to me. But I certainly knew a lot of people and have known a lot of people that did not. I don't understand. Maybe this is the first thing we should dig into. I don't understand, particularly today, paying all that money to go to what is supposed to be an academic honing and not get an academic experience. That is the most confusing thing in the world to me. Pay $60,000 a year to drink beer.
I wish I could go back. I mean, and now as an adult, I'm self-teaching myself so much stuff. And as a homeschool mom as well, like we are studying, we were studying last year the American Revolution, and so I was reading the Chernow biographies, which are 800 pages
Amazing.
of Alexander Hamilton and Ben Franklin, and Franklin wasn't Chernow, but Washington was Chernow. And then I went through Grant. There's an amazing, huge biography of Frederick Douglass as well that I went through. But I'm just basically like now, yeah, it was out like 3 years ago.
I swear to God, that book between Grant and Frederick Douglass, I thought I understood that period of history, and scales fell from my eyes. Scales fell from my eyes. That was a major awakening for me just to read those two books, and it helps me understand some of the horrors that we perpetrated on people, in the Reconstruction era, and Frederick Douglass was pointing that over and over again, that the violence in the South was just out of control, and it went on for decades.
Yeah. No, it really did.
Horrible.
So I mean, I read those back to back, and I had the same experience. It's really incredible. And I graduated with a history degree, and I didn't feel like I knew any of this stuff until after I graduated.
But thankfully, it created an interest in all this stuff and a hunger to learn. That's what's important. I mean, really, ultimately, the college should teach you how to read, how to write. I mean, really read and write, like be a penetrated reader, write well, and be able to be a critical thinker and have a hunger to expand your knowledge base. And you keep going. That's all. Yeah. So now you're. And by the way, what do you think is going to happen to these overpriced institutions? Is there going to be market forces that come to bear? Are we going to shrink the number of schools? Do you have an opinion about that?
So I wonder if COVID is going to I wonder if they're going to accidentally knock themselves out of contention with the over COVID hysteria. Because if this were me, however many years ago I went to college I don't want to think about it. A long time ago. If this were me a long time ago looking at college, I transferred to Rutgers because I wanted the college experience. Would I spend that amount of money to go to a college campus and sit in a dorm room and wear a mask all the time and not go to parties? Like, half of college is the connections that you make and the friends and the friendships and the relationships, romantic relationships. If I wanted the experience that most kids are getting on campuses now, I would have just stayed at a community college and paid a fourth of what I was paying, but I wanted the college experience. And so I went to Rutgers to live on campus. But it just, the financial sort of arrangement that people have now, where you just go and you sit alone in your dorm room, and then you go and you sit alone in a dining hall. It's depressing.
And for zero, there's zero clinical indications for that behavior. I mean, it's a zero, and it's going to continue even in states that have. Go ahead. Not to mention.
No, not to mention that they're forcing them to get all boosters, and that to me, like that would be the final straw. Like, especially if you've already had COVID.
Right, and there's so many things that have not been proven from a scientific standpoint in terms of boostering young people, mask wearing in young people. This is primitive native stuff. This is just doing it just to do it. There is, we've had a peer of mine on this program, a guy named Bethany Prasad, who follows this all very closely. He's an extremely good reader of medical literature, and it's V Prasad, MD, MPH. And he is just hammering on these issues every day. So please do follow him on Twitter and amplify his voice if you can.
His Substack is amazing.
Yeah, good. How did you come to him?
Twitter. And I follow him on Substack, and I want to sign all of my COVIDian friends up for his Substack without their knowledge, because it's just like, oh, hello, here's some actual information in your inbox instead of the hysteria that you're getting mainlined via CNN and MSNBC. He's a fantastic resource, and he is really sort of calling into question what they're doing, especially with boostering, especially with the dosage between the time between dosing, between the first dose and the second dose. And he's asking those questions that are not allowed to ask.
Monica Gandhi, also another good resource. She's also been on this program. Monica Gandhi 9, Gandhi. Gandhi. And they're just looking. They are good scientists. Monica is one of the leaders of the infectious disease department at UCSF. And Vinay, Dr. Prasad, I used to listen to his podcast, Plenary Sessions, just to hear him. This is years ago. I started listening, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, just to listen to his analysis of oncological literature, because it was so good, so clear. So his ability to read literature and contextualize it in the landscape of other studies, it was just second to none. So when he started speaking up, I thought, wow, well, I know this is going to be accurate and good because he has that kind of brain. So how has the experience been of trying to homeschool or of homeschooling 5 individuals? What are the ages now?
So my oldest is 8.5, and I'm currently in her bedroom. So if folks are watching this on video, the giant M&M you see in the background is hers. So she's 8.5. And then I have an almost 7-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 7-month-old.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Susan,
and it takes a while for me to...
Did you hear that, Susan? Is your headphones on?
Yep, I hear it.
How'd you like to be doing that right now in the middle of COVID?
Nope, I wouldn't.
Would not. And
Keeps life
now you said you were already going overseas for some exchange programs by the time you were a junior in high school. Yeah. How long do you plan to homeschool the kids?
I mean, I'm hoping for as long as they'll let me. There's an incredible program. Yeah, I mean they plural. However long they, at some point they're going to have a vote. If they're 15 years old and they're miserable, I'm not going to make them stay miserable.
I'm just saying I didn't know who the they was. I wanted to make sure they wasn't coming from outside your family. Yeah, okay.
No, my kids, each of my kids, they get a vote at some point. I don't know when the vote is enacted, but they get it at some point.
We should send Bethany a Dr. Drew bobblehead for her kids. Show them.
She loves.
Susan loves bobbleheads. Susan and well, you can put it on top of the M&M.
More towards the center. Yeah, we're having a contest. We're doing a Where's Dr. Drew. People have taken pictures of Drew in various places. We can't see the front.
I'm trying to get it. There we go.
There you go.
But we're going to tell who the winner is after the break. Anyways, I just had to throw that in because you forgot to announce it at the beginning.
I did. Well, you said to do it after the break, so I was waiting till after.
Well, we have to tell people to stay till after.
Stay until the break, and we will announce the winner of the Bobblehead contest. Susan has had a whole committee analyze all the entries to come up with this consensus. So it'll be very interesting. I don't know who it's going to be. So do you use online resources? Is that how you do this?
So a little bit. So it's a lot of what Caleb was saying. Like what he was saying was his experience is very much ours. So we use a math program, and we like sort of we cobble together some different English resources. A lot of picture books, a lot of reading out loud. It's very literature based, and so that's sort of English. And then we do a lot of trips and we do a lot of experiences. We have a Zoom class that we do for Judaic stuff. And so my kids take a Zoom class for Hebrew language and for Jewish studies and things like that. But other than that, there's not really online. They do an online piano program, which is great because I don't play the piano. But I would say like 85% of it is just me reading out loud.
Why do this?
Why do this? So in the beginning, it was the alternative was unappealing to me. First of all, we wanted to have more kids than we could afford, which is like we also can't afford to have 5 kids, but we especially can't afford to have 5 kids if we're sending them to private school, which is where we would send them if we weren't homeschooling. And so the choice is have 2 kids.
What is your concern about? What is your concern about public school?
So public school, first of all, I'm a product of public school, and it was actually pretty good public school. there's not, so especially where we live in very deep blue Montgomery County, Maryland. And everything that you see in the news is true about Montgomery County. Here's just an example. So the county council decided to take the school resource officers out of the school so that people weren't triggered by seeing police. Like, it's very upsetting to see a police officer. So they took all the police officers out. So now, instead of having school resource officers, whenever someone gets shot or stabbed, they have to call the police in. They see more police when they have to call people in than they did when they had school resource officers, because the violence has skyrocketed in the schools. And they're talking about doing DEI training in the schools for elementary school ages and transgender education, yada, yada. Like this is public school in America, in blue America in 2022. And I had my kids and it was hard. I do not want to subvert everything I've done by sending them to public school to be indoctrinated.
So you feel like it would be an indoctrination? In what sense? How can you, because they still have their family of origin, they still have you there to discuss these things with. How do you feel that that would be an indoctrination?
So it would basically be us trying to deprogram them and everything that is going on in the schools. And so with the DEI training and so they're creating now a racial equality and social justice committee, and this unit is basically, goes through all of they're creating an anti-racist system audit right now in Montgomery County, and so in every grade,
sounds good, right? Sounds
sure,
good.
it sounds good. Sounds great. I mean, the reality of it is they're teaching white children, which my children are, that there's something inherently wrong with being white, and they have to atone for that sin of being white, and that they are, part of a structure of oppression for their friend, at the desk over. You oldest Mandel child, you are part of an oppression system against your friend Brenda 2 seats down. That is emotionally and psychologically not healthy for a child to hear. And we would be tasked with deprogramming them.
And yet you and I were just talking about, the horrors of Reconstruction South, when there was horrible things happening, which I'm sure you want your kids to know.
For sure. But you don't have to teach your child at 8 years old that they are part of a horrifying system of oppression, instead of just telling them, like, these are things that happened in the past. It's important for us to have an understanding of them, but that you at 8 years old are not responsible, and that it's not the same. Things now in 2022 are not the same.
Do you have relationships with parents in the school system where you're hearing about this and they're sharing that with you?
Yeah.
Are there examples of specific things that they taught, or are you just hearing stories, or how does that work? Are there specific text or something?
So as of right now, they're creating more modules for the individual classrooms in Montgomery County. And so, they've been sort of consumed with COVID for the last 2 years, but now the Montgomery County school system is shifting gears, and their focus for the next 2 years will be creating an anti-racist curriculum. And we've seen examples of these. But
again, to me, it sounds good to do that. I just worry. I'd like specifics to understand where it's bad. Do we have those?
Yeah. So we don't have examples in Montgomery County yet, because they're still creating this curriculum, but we're seeing it in.
Are the parents getting the parents getting an input? Are the parents getting an input into that at all? Or are they?
Probably.
Sidelined?
So theoretically, yes. The school board meetings are in the middle of the day on Tuesdays or Mondays. And that's really your point where you can sort of bring your concerns to the table. But Montgomery County has decided to make their school board meetings in the middle of the day on a work day to try to deter participation.
Caleb, is this the kind of stuff your mom was worried about, or did she have similar motivation or something? What was What motivated her to do homeschooling?
My mom, literally, the story that she tells is that we actually went down to the school because the school was on the end of our street. So 3 houses down was the elementary school. We went to the school. I don't remember what happened. I just remember being in a room with a bunch of kids and parents. Something about it gave her a bad feeling. And she thought, I think I'm going to just take my kids home and I think we're going to figure this out ourselves. And that started and never stopped. She just started right there. And she said she just got a bad feeling.
How many kids did she have at that point?
She had 3 kids at that point. 2 or 3 kids were there at that point. And that's when she decided And a lot of it was...
Did your dad help out?
Kind of. I mean, she did all of the schooling, but he was very supportive of it from the start. He was anything that she wanted to do, he was there for it. And he was very much an early tech days dad where he would go to work 9 to 5, come home and he would just he'll buy the school books. He'll pay for whatever she wants to do with the kids because he trusted whatever her judgment was. And a lot of it was very religious reasons too.
Okay, you can tell me about that in a second. But Bethany, is your husband involved in the teaching?
So it sounds like I might be Caleb's mom coming from the future.
Right. He was involved in the entrepreneur stuff, and on the weekends, my dad he always, after doing his tech job, he always had some spin-off entrepreneur business that he was running, whether it was a home repair business. Now he runs like an heirloom seeds business. It's like he's always doing, that's what really kind of taught us how to do that because he wanted to make extra money somehow all the time. And so on the weekends, he would bring us with him all the time. We learned about how to run companies from our dad. And that was our weekend stuff every week.
Interesting. And what was the religious stuff for your mom?
For my mom, very, very far right Roman Catholic splinter group in a way. Where the women wear head coverings.
Are most homeschool? I didn't realize this, but I'm wondering: are most people that homeschool running away from the stuff, Bethany, you're concerned about? Do they tend to be right-leaning folks, or is it all over the place?
So I think it's all over the place. The number of Black families that are homeschooling has skyrocketed. I think it used to be, gosh, I'm going to look up the statistic because it's really interesting. It used to be like 3%, and I think now it's like over 10.
Even back then, it was a very diverse group. Like everyone assumes it's just a bunch of white people on farms, but when we would go to homeschool meetings and to homeschool groups, it was very diverse. Like I don't want to say my closest friends growing up was a Hispanic family of like another 6 kids. And that's like, that's the only culture that I learned outside of my, white family is that all of the, different cultures that would come together from these homeschool groups. So it was even shocking to me as a homeschooler that it wasn't what everyone imagined it to be.
Are their motivations different? Yeah. Do you find differing motivations amongst different socioeconomic, cultural, ethnic groups?
Yeah. A lot of it, for our group, the circle that I ran with, it was a lot of religious, and it was a lot of, they didn't like what was being taught. They think of public schools as as almost like a cookie cutter system for turning out new citizens to work jobs as opposed to having independent thought. And so they thought, we can make independent people. Yeah.
I am guessing, though, back then there was fear about the sexuality and substances and those kinds of topics that were sort of being opened up at that time. Was that what frightened your mom? How about your mom, Bethany?
Oh, my mom could care less about any of these things. She was happy to send me to school and be like, good luck to you. I'll see you at 3 p.m., not a moment earlier. Thank you very much.
That would be
we were only allowed to listen to Christian radio. Like we were not allowed to listen to any music that wasn't Christian radio.
I could not have been less sheltered.
No TV. No, we had TV until I was probably 7 or 8, and then that got cut off. And it was only EWTN, the Catholic channels and things like that we were allowed to see. Now that's what we were allowed to see. Now we always, of course, you can't escape it. Though they tried, but it's like you have handheld radios, then you can just turn the dial over to the other stations. But
to K-Rock,
Loveline,
literally,
right, exactly. So boom, I know, really wild stuff.
Ruined.
And so Bethany, did you? Sorry about that for your mom. Sorry, but you had no homeschooling yourself? Is that right?
No. No, not even close. The closest I think you can say is I watched Days of Our Lives on the 30 days a year that I skipped school. If maybe 50 days a year I skipped school.
And then the Jewish training, tell me about that. Because that seems to be also motivational. Again, people are interested in the religious sort of aspects of homeschooling. Tell me.
So just like in our household?
Like your what your background was, how you got interested in that.
So my dad was Jewish and my mom was Catholic, and my parents had, per their divorce agreement, had to give me a choice. And I decided I wanted to be Jewish, in part because I don't like to go with what everyone else is doing. And so there was no Jews in my hometown. And so I was like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be a Jew. But also, I felt more connected to Judaism. I felt more connected to sort of the culturally, I felt more connected to Judaism. And so I basically self-trained myself in, what it means to be a Jew with free access to my mom's Amazon account with, because Amazon back then was just books. And so I just ordered books all the time and just sort of self-taught myself Judaism as a young teen. And then, unfortunately, because my mom was not the Jewish one, I had to go through a conversion process, which I did.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think it was like 22, 23. And so I had to go through a conversion process because Judaism is matrilineal.
Right. And so and now you're using that as part of your educational curriculum for your kids, right?
Not quite yet. I outsource a little bit of it. My kids do a Zoom class with a former teacher at a Jewish day school. And then we read the weekly Torah portion together and we have conversations. It's all very organic in our house. And so we sort of have very esoteric conversations over lunch. Like today, what was the question my kids asked? God had no beginning. Something along those, like something about how could God have no beginning? What did he look like in the beginning or something like that? And I was like, that's a rabbi
how old
question.
Is he?
6.
Tap out.
Currently 6.
Oh yeah. This is like, lunchtime when you have all 5 of the kids sitting there. That's what the kids talk about because you're all siblings and you have these very large questions you ask each other. And then of course they expect the eldest kid to know the answers and we did not. We would make it up.
Yes. So my 8-year-old today asked, yesterday, we were reading a Bible portion because we memorize a portion of the Bible every term. And so in the portion, it says, in the beginning, God created man in his image, and it's singular. But then 2 lines up, it says, is sort of in the voice of God, in our likeness. And so my daughter said, well, why is it plural? Why is it in our likeness if God is just talking about himself and God is one? And I was like, also a rabbi question. I will phone a friend on that one too.
And even in that same paragraph, isn't there something about coming out of clay or something? There's a third sort of origin story, if I remember right, that was sort of
I don't remember. It's not in ours. Yeah, that sounds very Egyptian. That's also something we're studying right now, actually. Egypt.
Interesting. So let's do this. Let's take a little break, and we come back. We're going to talk about your Heroes of Liberty book, and we're gonna talk. We're gonna also announce who won this thing. Oh, there it is.
Here it comes.
You have a home here series.
I want it.
Ready?
All right. So take a little break and be right back. Since the beginning of the pandemic, nearly 1 in 5 Americans has reported consuming an unhealthy amount of alcohol. Could be you, but only 10% of them are actually getting the help they need. Reframe is a neuroscience-based smartphone app that helps users cut back or quit drinking alcohol altogether. Using evidence-based tools, techniques, and content, Reframe guides users through a personalized program to help them reach their goals. Comprised of daily tasks, a comprehensive toolkit, a community forum, and accountability guides, Reframe is a modern, accessible, and affordable resource that can help anyone looking to reevaluate their relationship with alcohol. Reframe is backed by Harvard University and Emory University Schools of Medicine, and it is ranked the #1 alcohol reduction smartphone app worldwide with over 350,000 downloads. With Reframe, there's no stigma, just science, no labels, just support. To learn more, go to joinreframeapp.com/Dr. Drew. Use the code Dr. Drew for 25% off your first month or your annual subscription. That's at joinreframeapp.com/Dr. Drew. Let's talk about our friends at Hydralyte. I can't say enough about Hydralyte. You hear me talk about them all the time. It gets me through workouts and medical procedures and colonoscopies and COVID. It absolutely contributed to my recovery from COVID. Hydration is key to feeling healthy, and there's never been a time when that could be more important. We're in the height of cold flu season. Every headache has got you testing for COVID. Staying hydrated can keep the questionable symptoms at bay, and there's nothing better than Hydralyte to get it done. Taking their hydration formula one step further, now there is Hydralyte Plus Immunity. It starts with their fast-absorbing electrolytes and adds a host of great ingredients. Plus, each single-serve, easy-pour drink mix contains 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C and 300 milligrams of elderberry extract. Hydralyte Plus Immunity comes in convenient, easy-pour powder sticks that rapidly dissolve in water to make a great-tasting drink that has a 75% less sugar than your typical sports drink. It uses all-natural flavors. It's gluten-free, dairy-free, caffeine-free, non-GMO, and even vegan. Hydralyte Plus Immunity is also now available in ready-to-drink bottles at the Walmart next to the pharmacy, or as always, you can find it by visiting hydralyte.com/Dr. Drew. That is HYDRALYTE.com/Dr. Drew. And be sure to use that code Dr. Drew 25 at checkout for a special discount. We are about to announce our winner in just a minute. Bethany, what was it?
Oh, sorry.
Hang on a second. I'm just trying to jar my memory.
Segues.
What did we normally talk about on KBC when you would call in? Was it childbearing stuff? What did we talk about? I can't even remember. I just remember I liked talking to you.
I remember it too. So I remember my most vivid memory is we were scheduled to have a conversation and we had a family-wide stomach virus. And I came upstairs and I had run into the basement to talk to you. And I came back up and I told my kids that I had just talked to Dr. Drew and they thought that you were their pediatrician. And they panicked and said, we do not want to go to see Dr. Drew.
No shots. No shots.
And I was like, different kind of doctor, guys. But I mean, I think... So that's my most vivid memory. And it was my kids' just absolute terror of you that is seared into my brain from that stomach
Well, when they
virus
see
thing.
the
So
bobblehead, they won't be terrified
they're going to be so
anymore.
excited.
Right.
They are obsessed with bobbleheads. I made a bobblehead of my husband so that they could add it to their bobblehead collection.
Oh.
So see, Susan, you weren't the only one.
Perfect guest today.
That's right.
For the big reveal of who
Bethany is our bobblehead guest.
Okay, so
here we go.
Maybe we'll let her have. I want you to have a vote today too, but
Bethany or me? Bethany. I already did one.
Bethany. Yeah. Since you don't know any of these people, but Caleb can show the top 4 up for contention here.
And those of you who see your pictures here get very excited.
Okay, here's number 1.
There we are.
Where's Dr. Drew? He's with a brain.
2 with the aliens.
He's on a.
I'm a dog
with
person.
The dog. Mm-hmm.
Wait, that's 2 with the dog.
And
3 with the aliens.
No, just 1.
So so the brain is 4. The first one.
Yeah.
These were the top contenders.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're jumping around. I think Bethany's going for the dog. Sounds like.
No, so
Is that true?
This maybe I'm putting too much thought into this. I think I'm voting for the aliens because I like how thoughtful that person was with their camera angle and how you're kind of looking down on the aliens and they are your subjects.
Well, there's another one though. There's another alien one.
Really staged that.
Wait.
Really
get the yes, they really did. What about this alien one? The aliens are crawling on me. They're winning.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't want them to be you. I want you to be
the
Lord.
With the wings?
Yeah. Okay.
Who's the guy with the
Is
wings?
this the same person? Because I see this in this. In the first one.
We just had somebody liked I did a poll with about 8 people, and then us, and the number one was the alien on the balcony for one of the people. So I took the first place winner. So there was definitely, they all agreed that they liked the brain, the dog, the aliens in the circle, and then one person.
So Bethany's going for the aliens in the circle, very clearly.
So she's joined. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a tie.
Oh, you're going to send 2 bobbleheads out.
But we have a tie for first, and then we have a second place.
Okay.
And we're going to have a first and second place. So first place, a lot of people went for the brain.
Okay.
The brain was very popular.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, this was Harley Sears. He was the first person to put a picture up, which, maybe there's something.
I like the brain too. The only part I questioned was it was supposed to be a locality. Like, where is this?
Yeah, but all the celebrities I asked Heather McDonald, Josh Flagg, and Leanne Kreischer, and they said they liked the brain.
Okay, great. Okay.
But the photography on the brain's really good too.
Okay. So brain
second place.
with.
I actually thought that
aliens.
I thought that was like the picture that you were using for the promo.
Like the
promo. Was so good.
Like the promo.
Yeah.
Well, we are now.
We will be. Don't worry. So there it is.
It's really good.
And then we also have a tile with the aliens in the
Bethany's pick
circle around Dr. Drew, which is Leopold did that one, and he's Prosky or whatever.
Prosky?
He's also a local. Yes. And then, of course, people always love a dog.
That was that second place?
Yeah. And wait, you didn't put up the saw, Caleb.
Oh, Chris with the saw, which one I liked? Put the saw up there. I like that one. Chris was very
I don't think I have that one.
Didn't have as many votes.
Oh, well, Chris, just that one with the saw got traction. It just didn't win.
Yeah. It was probably.
And there was a little bit of I know I see you, Chris.
Third.
There was a little bit of talk that if only you'd actually been sawing me in half, that might have done it. That might have actually put you over.
And you would have gotten a free bobblehead.
Right, you would have gotten one anyway.
No, but okay. So I don't know if Harley's on the. He's in between clients right now, but I just wanted to tell Harley that he had the first place winner, and Leopold. I don't know if Leopold's here either. If you are, say hi. I think you're on. Leopold can come on. I
don't think he's here.
Yeah, neither one are here.
But Tom's dog, wasn't that Tom Cigar's dog?
And Tom Cigar, of course, he's here. We know he's here. Yeah. So congratulations. And Chris was she was in runner-up with the saw, but I don't know why you don't have the picture. I sent it to Caleb's sick today. I think he has COVID. So
send it again so he can get it. Oh no, forget it. Caleb's like, I'm sick.
So anyways, not only are you getting a free autographed bobblehead from Dr. Drew, you also get a half-hour segment on Ask Dr. Drew.
Oh, I didn't know about this
to
part.
ask Dr. Drew whatever you want for half an hour.
Oh, I didn't know.
I didn't know about that either.
And we can all. Yeah. You didn't know about that?
No.
I've only said it 14 times, but. Okay, so I told everybody.
So that'll be Harley and.
This sounds a lot like my marriage. Like I've only said it 14 times. And you sound a lot like my husband too, because he gaslights me sometimes. He's like, "We talked about this." I'm like, "Did we?" You never really know.
Okay, but we really appreciate everybody's submissions. We might do another round. If anybody else has a Dr. Drew bobblehead that they want to do hashtag where is Dr. Drew, go ahead and post it on Twitter or Instagram, and we'll keep track, and we'll have another contest.
So Stephen, the winners are Harley Sears and Leopold Prosky.
Yes.
And they will get can we bring them on together to do that 30-minute conversation, or is it going to be?
No, they'll be separate.
30 and then 30.
Maybe they can come up with a topic, and they can each have their own show and be on the podcast. So, yeah, so I'm you can still get the bobblehead. It's still available at drdrew.com/shop, and we can maybe do another round if we have enough submissions. I have to have some submissions. These are all the same people, but I think it was fun anyways. We tried.
And Chris is a damning Leopold. But Chris, I told you, if you'd sawed the thing in half, you'd actually been an action figure with all the.
Everybody was going for the brain, and
Yeah.
I was like, and it was random, and then the aliens came up in the rear. So.
All right, fair enough. So let's go to thank you everyone for your submissions. Let's go back to Bethany and her books. So tell me about this project.
Yeah, so we are creating a series of sort of more wholesome, patriotic children's illustrated biographies. So the first three were Ronald Reagan, Thomas Sowell, and Amy Coney Barrett. We just published our fourth about John Wayne. And we're doing one a month. And so February is John Wayne, and then March will be Alexander Hamilton, and then April will be Margaret Thatcher. And we just went to print on Margaret Thatcher this week. And they're really beautifully illustrated books for kids like 7 to 12 or so. And they're really fun topics and really fun people. It's really nice to be able to talk about sort of the 80s with Ronald Reagan, and lots of different themes in Thomas Sowell about sort of picking yourself up by your bootstraps and growing up in Jim Crow America. And Amy Coney Barrett, my daughter now wants to stake out her church here in Washington because we live in DC, and she wants to just be a stalker of Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, that's my future. That's what I'll be doing my spring.
And
I'll
so
just be
how about getting one on Frederick Douglass so we can start getting that into the lexicon early? Yeah,
I want to.
That's
one of the ones I want to do.
I obviously I see kind of the direction you're going, but I urge you to kind of, Angela Davis and there's the people who wrote some interesting books that could expose kids to some of these ideas that other people feel have been left out of the conversation without being indoctrinating. I think it's important.
Yeah, so I appreciate the concern about being indoctrination. I think there's concerns about all of them and how they could be indoctrinating. But what's really nice about the stories is that they're just like they're just telling about their lives. That it's not overly preachy. It's not talking down to kids. It's not condescending to them. They're just sort of really good stories and beautifully illustrated books about who they were and when they lived and how they lived. And Frederick Douglass is one of the ones that I really want to do. And Ulysses S. Grant is another one I really want to do. And we also want to do a Founding Fathers series. So something that I've had a frustration with children's books is that a lot of the Founding Fathers books spend a lot of time and focus on the negatives. And this is sort of harkening back to our early conversation about the difference between talking about Reconstruction South and basically CRT, which is what they're doing here in Montgomery County. You can have a conversation about racism.
What negatives are being emphasized?
The slave owning.
But are they also getting the thinking and the history of what actually happened?
Somewhat, but it's the focus on the slave owning. Especially one of the commenters said something about Thomas Jefferson, and this is something that I've really struggled with, finding more modern books about Thomas Jefferson that don't have his rape. I'm like trying to think of a nicer way to say it, and there's just not. Like his rape of his female slaves, Sally Hemings, is such a focal point, and it's difficult to do that in a children's book because then you have to talk about rape with a child. And so a lot of children's books feel like they need to talk about that. And I appreciate that. And I understand that, but I don't think it's appropriate because I've read these books about Thomas Jefferson with my children. And then I have to have a conversation with my kids, first of all, about how a man can have a baby with a woman when they're not married, how they can have a baby against her will, and power dynamics in a relationship. Like there's a lot of things in there that I don't want to talk about with my 7-year-old daughter. I just want to talk about Thomas Jefferson and how he spoke a lot of languages. And we can get into the Sally Hemings stuff when she's 13 or 14. And those are conversations that parents absolutely need to have because they need to know about those aspects of life, but they don't need to know about them at 7 years old.
How do we teach kids to?
I agree.
But that's the sexual part, and I get that. But how do we help them reconcile these incredible philosophical condensations that came to our Constitution with the hypocrisy of what was going on at the time? How do we help kids understand that? What do we do? And we're having enough time as a nation trying to figure that out. How do you tell kids that story? Yeah.
So I think that it happens. So in our books, we definitely talk about it, and it's not something we're going to shy away from. But I think the difference is having those conversations to the exclusion of other conversations. I think that children are very black and white. And I think that a lot of our sort of national conversation about race, about sexuality, all of these things mirrors that black and whiteness. And so you're told that people are all good or all bad. And that's not healthy for children to hear, because there has to be nuance in the conversation. And so, yes, there were bad aspects of also Ben Franklin. Like, let's have a conversation about how he treated his wife, and Frederick Douglass, for that matter. Both of them were adulterers, and I'm not a fan of adultery. And I think it reflects really poorly. I hope so.
I agree.
Your wife is on here.
Yeah, but I agree strongly. That was one of the things that bothered me about Frederick Douglass, and he kind of developed more sort of. But then, it's easy to go, oh my God, with his history, he couldn't attach to anybody. Of course, yes, of course, yes, I get it. But later in life, he was able to have some sort of better attachments and real relationships and stuff. Yeah. So he got there, but it doesn't mean that it, like we're saying, it was a nuanced history for this guy. Yeah, you can understand why he would have trouble with the relationships, given his family was torn apart in slavery, and he was all those horrible things. Yeah. And of course, he would have difficulty forming long-term relationships, of course, but doesn't make it good or okay.
Yeah. So, what we're trying to do, I can give you an example out of the Alexander Hamilton book. So much of Alexander Hamilton's history was the fact that he was, first of all, orphaned, but also was a bastard. His father, his parents weren't married. His father sort of bailed on the relationship. And so we kind of had to figure out as an imprint, how do we handle that for children who are as young as like maybe 5 years old, reading it, on their parents' lap. And we decided as an imprint that we would talk about the fact that he was orphaned, but that we were not going to touch the fact that his parents weren't married, and that he was, considered a bastard. And that was a hard decision to make, because so much of his psychological decisions all through his life leading up to the duel itself with his death harken back to that abandonment. And it's all interconnected. But you kind of have to decide what is appropriate for a child of a certain age. And that's a conversation that isn't happening in publishing houses now. Now, books, we're doing a campaign with Heroes of Liberty, stopwokebooks.com. And we're doing a campaign against sort of what is being published by Scholastic Books. And one of the books is called George. And in it, it's written for children as young as 8 years old. There's a conversation about puberty blockers and transitioning and having surgeries and all of these things related to being transgender. That, in my opinion, is not appropriate for an 8-year-old to read alone in a chapter book, where it's different, I think, when it's a read aloud, but especially when it's a chapter book that they read by themselves that's marketed as such, that is just not an appropriate topic. And not an appropriate thing to tell children either.
I have a UK teacher and private tutor on the restream here. She says, kids don't see the world the way adults do, which is true. We're putting way too many concerns from the adult world on kids before they need it. Let them be kids. This is from a teacher in the United Kingdom. Interesting. Interesting.
And
These are all really...
I think that a lot of that is connected with youth mental health crises and how it's all going up. It's because we're putting too much on children and stripping them of their innocence. There are things that they have to learn, but they don't have to learn them at 7 years old.
Yeah, I'm guessing you left the Maria Reynolds affair out of the
Yes.
Hamilton book. Yeah.
Very much.
Just guessing. But did you talk about extortion, or did you talk about his struggles to form a unified currency and a bond market, and
Yes.
why people didn't trust his economics? They didn't trust him because he got extorted.
We didn't talk about the extortion, but we did talk about sort of his role in the Treasury Department and how people were apprehensive. We touched on that a little bit, but we did not touch the Maria Reynolds affair.
To be fair, back to if you want to point at one guy, and I'm a Hamilton fan, in terms of his intellect and some of the extraordinary things that he wrote and pushed through. But I think he was the compromiser in chief that resulted in so many of the compromises around slavery that really screwed things up 100 years later. I mean, he was a major figure in all that, particularly in pushing it through in New York. I mean, that was the final state in the Constitutional Convention that had to get it done, and he was he was wheeling and dealing, and he didn't care about anything except winning at that point, I don't think. So who knows? We weren't there. But yeah, there's lots of people are flawed. Humans are flawed, everybody. I got news for you. Guess what? Humans are flawed. There's no such thing as an all good human. It just doesn't really exist. They at one point did something dumb and stupid or unthoughtful or something. It's just always something. And that's, hopefully they're more good than bad. That's what you try to do, is try to be deontological and Kantian and live your life as though a camera's running all the time and that people would judge your actions. It's a good way to go. And funny, I was talking to some game theorists today who were saying that because people can't kind of figure out how to game the system, they sort of default to just doing what's right. So unless you're a mastermind, you're way better off just doing what's right, just from a game theory standpoint, not from a what's right and what's wrong standpoint. Well, Bethany, this is very interesting. By the way, how's COVID been for you? Any thoughts about how this all went down and the excesses of some of the experiences here? Did you guys get COVID? Did you?
We did. So my husband and I were vaccinated, and I mean, I hope that helped. You can't create a crystal ball in which you can create an alternate identity, But I mean, I think it helped. Yeah. I have no frame of reference because I didn't get COVID beforehand. But so we all got it as a family over Christmas. My older two kids, my kids just basically didn't get sick. My baby was 5 months old, and he sounded kind of croupy, and I was a little bit concerned about him one night. And I had a good friend who's a pediatrician, and she came on our front lawn wearing an N95 and listened to his chest for me, which was really nice, so that I didn't have to go to the emergency room. But he sounded like it was like RSV, like a little bit of croup. It was just kind of like for a night. Mm-hmm. You can use that screenshot of me making that face.
I will. Don't worry. It's going to be in a loop.
My daughter used to do that. Scared the heck out of me.
And so was she tested also?
So we only had, so it was Christmas. And so we only had one rapid test in the house. And so we decided to test the most symptomatic non-vaccinated person in the house. And he was positive, and we were all sick. And then my husband and I lost taste and smell. So it was pretty good indication. We all had it.
By the way, one of the things one of the criticisms I have of our COVID data, there's a household of 7 of you. Undoubtedly, at least 5 of the 7 of you had this thing. We were a household of 6.
6 of us.
6 were 5 of us got it, and out of
4.
Who didn't get it?
Jordan had it before.
Yeah, but my point being,
he may have brought it home.
My point being is, out of the sick people that had Omicron, only one test was documented by the government.
Mine.
Only one test got reported. Right, you're 6 out of 7, none documented. So
because
the
Omicron
was way underreported by many, maybe an order of magnitude or something. Because
but we're in Laguna and in Orange County, and they don't really over-test down there. Nobody cares. And I said, Drew, grab a COVID test. So he hunted around. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had Alpha, and then I had Omicron.
I remember you had Alpha, and you were extremely sick.
He got it again.
Then I got J&J, and then I got Omicron. And Omicron was Trust me, nothing.
But they have these tests
Nothing.
now where you have to
Nothing.
you put it on your phone and you have to check it on your phone to see if you have it, and then it reports it.
Which is good.
But I only had 2 of those, and I had a bunch of old tests that I had taken with me to New York because I didn't know that we left behind a crew.
And the testing is all over the place for Omicron.
But I also waited 3 days before I took the test
Yeah.
because a lot of people test the first day and the second day, and they go, "Oh, I don't have it," and then the third day you get it. So I waited till the third day, and it was clear as a bell. Clear as a bell.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, my husband took a
and
couple
Drew had
tests
already had it.
and they were all negative.
Yeah. Yeah, mine was all negative too, but the whole house was sick and I was sick.
And
so
Drew had all these negative tests. So he's like, "Oh, it's just a cold," and then he gave it to the rest of us.
How dare you? And so, so Bethany, before we wrap up, there's a lot of, I'm not quite sure what people want us to discuss, but on this chat, they're asking us, what about Justin Trudeau? What about Justin Trudeau? I'm not quite sure what you're asking us about him. I think, again,
Bad.
the
2 thumbs
excesses
down.
on display are, the excesses are not good. To more than anything, what I find uncanny is that governments seem to unable to adjust and change direction based on changing circumstances. And that is deeply, deeply troubling because these are nuanced circumstances. There's a lot of information changing all the time, and they should be changing with that. And they just don't seem to. And they go further in a bizarre direction, and that's what Trudeau seems to be doing. I don't know. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really it's weird because at this moment when everyone is rolling back restrictions and in DC she rolled back the vaccine mandate and I mean the mayor Muriel Bowser. She rolled back the vaccine mandate, she's rolling back the masks, and Trudeau is just sort of entrenching and sticking
and
to
all
his
he has to
guns.
do is
Bizarre.
look at all the countries and counties and cities and states that have rolled it back. Are you seeing an increase in cases? Is there a catastrophe afoot because they've done that? Or are these good beta tests for you to now make a judgment? I'm not saying it's going to stay down. Look, this virus has been nefarious. It has come back up out of nowhere. It could come back up. And guess what? We could start to, respond to that. But right now it's clear where this is going. And I suspect it's going to stay this way for quite some time, mostly because of how contagious and widespread Omicron was, and the fact that natural immunity is effective. And I just while we were getting going here, I was reading a study that suggests there's good evidence of robust immunity for 4 years from natural immunity. And again, it's not perfect. It's not that you can't get it. I got Omicron, but if I'm going to get something like that every year, bring it.
Yeah,
Bring it.
who cares?
That was way different than Alpha.
The flu
I
is
was scared
worse.
for you with Alpha.
That was nasty.
I
Yeah, it
would
was
not
nasty.
want to have the
But
flu.
why be scared, Bethany? I had a 1% fatality rate even at my age, and yes,
Right,
as you
but
get
you
sicker, you kind of. I was.
We've
sick.
never
I
seen
was
you
not
sick
look
before, Drew.
pleasant.
Yeah, we've never seen you
if
sick,
I'd
so
gone
it's scary.
Well, and if I'd gone in the hospital,
Yeah,
I
but
would
the
have.
second time he was on the air and he looked good.
You like me better, that kind of sick.
I don't like the coughing.
Day
all through
after
the
Valentine's,
show.
he looked good.
Oh, the coughing. Ugh.
Had I been hospitalized, then the fatality rate goes up to like 15%, and it gets a little kind of dicier.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still very, very unusual. And
Yeah.
I was getting treated with things, and the treatments work, and I wanted people to know about
I
that.
know. Science is working.
BT
Which,
Dub,
by the way-
I used the orange bottle that you recommended. The where is it? Quercetin?
Of course,
Is that what you recommended?
as
The
part of
orange?
Yeah.
I
And
bought that
my-
when you got sick as an insurance policy. So thank you very much, because I took that when we got COVID.
Good. You kind of have to take zinc with that because that's how it works. But anyway,
I did. Yes, I
hydroxy-
took extra zinc.
Good. My
I didn't
real
take the
enthusiasm
hydroxy. It was impossible to get.
was for the monoclonal antibodies, and sotrovimab is the last one to have worked against.
Oh, that was supposed to go with ivermectin or something. I can't
Hold
remember.
on.
Sorry.
Sotrovimab was last one to work against Omicron, but that is starting to wane a little bit. And there's a new subvariant of Omicron called BA2, and there are 2 new monoclonal antibodies that need to get pushed out there. Silgavimab and tixagivimab, and keep an eye out for those 2 if you do get sick with
I always
Omicron.
laugh. It's so funny, these words.
These names. Anything that ends in MAB,
He's just
MAB is
making them up.
monoclonal.
I
do
know.
make them up, but anything in MAB is.
But he just throws them out.
Hang on. The words that end in MAB is the MAB stands for monoclonal antibody. MAB. MAB.
I get it.
So toxilizumab, it's a.
But I know,
monoclonal
but
antibody.
they have to make it so silly.
Well, they claim that there's a rationality to some of these trade names. I don't, or these names. I don't buy it. All right.
Don't believe that.
So, what's Trudeau's psychology in this situation? Somebody's asking. Look, pretty much everything that bamlanivimab, Drodo, yes, pretty much everything that is sort of problematic behavior these days. Just think narcissism, and you'll be pretty good. You'll be pretty right most of the time. Narcissistic defense, narcissistic wound, narcissistic projection, narcissistic grandiosity. It's all deep, profoundly active these days. Did Bethany freeze on us, Caleb?
I think so.
Oh, there you are.
wait,
You look like you
I thought
froze
it
for a
did.
second.
There we
She's
go.
reading her phone.
Yeah.
She got
Weird.
bored.
Right.
She's reading her phone.
Okay.
No,
so
I got
here's
like
what we're gonna
a
do.
bizarre message.
What, you okay?
Yeah, no, I got my message from my husband. I just want to make sure that there was not like a SOS. I don't know what's going on down there.
All right. Well, we'll release you to
Too
go
many
back to
kids.
the
Come back,
yeah,
Mom.
5 kids.
Help me.
No,
Was it whose idea was 5?
I mean, we really like each other. It's just the truth.
I
Very
understand
little
that.
self-control.
I really like my wife too.
We're
but-
narcissists.
Okay. Well, okay. We'll think that way. All right. Whatever you think. But it's great to reconnect with you. Thank you for
Good
sharing
thing you like him. You better go down there. He's not gonna like you.
your thoughts.
I know. I know. I was like, oh, by the way, I'm going
somebody-
to talk to Dr. Drew in the middle of bedtime today. Have fun.
No,
Oh,
no. Sorry about that.
no.
All right. We'll get you out of here. All right. Listen, again, where do you want people to go?
heroesofliberty.com. Lots of
Okay.
books. And then on and then Twitter at Bethany Shondark, Instagram at Bethany Shondark.
And then Facebook is Bethany Shondark
I
Mandel,
never
right?
post there.
Never
Yeah,
post-
I never
okay.
post
And
there.
Shondark,
There's only so many social networks.
SHONDARK. I think that's why I started prioritizing Shondark, because you were schooling me on your social media handles and stuff. I think that's where it got in my head.
Yes,
So-
that's exactly right. I'm terrible. It's all my fault.
All right. All right. It's all your fault, but we appreciate you being here nonetheless. Thank you so much, Bethany. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. And thanks for getting me out of bedtime.
Sure. Well, I'm
This
sending
is
you
the
back in
perfect
there. I'm not
time.
sure you got it.
Anytime.
actually got out of
Anytime
it.
right at this
But-
time.
Okay. All right. We'll see what we can do. And
Also, I just have to mention really quick. We forgot to say where Dr. Drew was with the brain.
oh, where was that?
He's in Harley Sears hypnotherapy office in Beverly Hills.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I love it.
Mhm,
Oh, we're
mhm.
gonna have a good conversation. And congratulations.
So maybe we
to
can
Harley.
talk about hypnotherapy.
There it is. And congratulations to Leopold, and congratulations to who was runner-up, Tom Cigar. Yeah, we will talk
Tom
to
Cigar's dog.
Tom Cigar's dog. Is Caleb, you back there? We can let Bethany go. She has to go take care of her kids.
Bye, Bethany.
Is
I mean,
Caleb
I'm
gone
here
to
to
take care of his
chat.
kids? Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, let's have Bethany back again too, to talk more about homeschooling whenever I'm feeling better, because I have lots of questions and I'd love to dig in
well,
more.
that's okay.
Love it.
Great guest.
Good.
You got
That's-
it.
We were.
You
okay.
got to find Chris's picture though. That was so cute, and she's kind of pissed she didn't put it up. So
I like the one with Chris and the big furry.
I know
helmet,
he liked her furry
yeah,
hat.
Your
She sent that when it was
the
like
Sub-Zero.
0 degrees.
Yeah, your Sub-Zero bobblehead. Okay, so again, tomorrow we got the boys coming in here. That's Chad and JT, and we'll talk about their raging and their. There they are. Look at them. And their. Is it raining outside? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's pouring all of a sudden.
Is it?
It sounds like it's hailing or something. Weird.
Oh yeah, it's really raining.
Yeah, that's weird. It was 85
never rains
degrees
in
yesterday.
California.
Well,
It's so
especially when it
bad.
was
I don't
85
think
degrees the day
I'm-
before. Let's see what you got. It is hailing.
It is hailing.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Hey, you mentioned with Chris and her 0 degrees, and it brought us hail.
Just boom, just like
It
that.
hails in California occasionally. It's
Yeah.
the weirdest thing.
Yep. So again,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah,
all
it's
for
really
being here.
coming
Caleb,
down.
thank you for shepherding us through this in spite
God's
of your illness.
mad we didn't pick with Chris.
Susan, thank you for the just a nod to Swiss
I
Chris.
loved hers. I
Swiss Chris.
did.
It's really, really coming down. Look at that. And we appreciate y'all being here. We'll be here tomorrow with the boys. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit about the future of media. So see you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.